Let's get more on this now with Xing Gan in Kuala Lumpur. She's a financial market strategist at Exness. Welcome back to the program, Lee. Now, has Nvidia's earnings truly eased concerns, or is this just a temporary boost of confidence for markets?
Right, thank you so much for having me. But I would say that, the recent Nvidia's earnings that we have, I would say it's more of a shift in terms of perspective, right, as compared to uh, easing concerns, right? I think over here it shows us that the demand is not the issue, right, with the 68 billion that we have seen in the quarterly revenue, but also, the question of where that growth is coming from, right? And I think for the first time, right, Nvidia pointed out sovereign AI, right, projects and also smaller enterprises, right, catching up with the hyperscalers. And it's important because Nvidia's revenue comes from a handful of big players. So yes, the earnings sentiment did give a lift, but it also reminded investors of this concentration risk, right? Especially around valuation concerns, also AI, right? So I think if hyperscaler spending slow or before we see a new wave of demand ramp up, right, we could be seeing a gap.
Right, and despite those strong results, it was met with muted response. Why has its consistent outperformance failed to impress investors this time?
Yeah, I like you mentioned, right? The company delivers strong numbers again, but market it's quietly pricing in even more, right? I think the expectations of guidance closer to 80 billion. So when it comes in at 78 billion, right, there is a slight bit of disappointment there by the markets, right? And I think the challenge it's also at elevated expectations, right? Because it's a ripple effect, right? There are valuation concerns, and given the run up that we've seen in Nvidia, right? I think when it gives a narrower margin for room or for disappointment.
And looking over at Japan, stocks are continuing to hit new records. How much of that is actually down to the so-called Takeichi trade, or are markets still riding the AI wave over there?
I say that it's a mix of both, right? Takechi's effect definitely have a positive impact on the stocks, especially with expectations, of markets and more aggressive fiscal expansion policies. On top of that, also there seem to be she's more leaning more towards, I guess, dovish expectations for the Bank of Japan. So I think that also helped to support the Nikkei rally, right? On top of that, her initiatives like push for more domestic data centers and also like nuclear energy expansion, those are also catalysts that we've seen in the rally.
So does this trade only work if the yen weakens, and what happens to Japanese equities if that currency story doesn't play out?
Yeah, I would say that, right now, the big risk, it's definitely the stance by the Bank of Japan, as well as inflation. So if we take a look at the latest inflation data, we saw that inflation has been easing, right? And that might be a bit of a challenge for the Bank of Japan in terms of its policy normalization, right? But despite that, right, Governor Ueda has also suggested, leaning more towards hiking interest rates further, right, as long as inflation is steady. So I would say that yeah, definitely the yen weakening supports the Nikkei move up, right? But it may remain volatile because of expectations around the BOJ.
Xing Gan in Kuala Lumpur, thank you very much for that analysis.
Thank you for having me.